Hello and welcome to Tech Craic, the podcast series brought to you by Sync NI, Northern Ireland's leading technology and business media company. This podcast series will see us speak with some of the best, brightest and influential thought leaders from across our local tech sector. Visit syncni.com and follow us across our social media channels to find out more. Enjoy! Hello everyone and welcome back to the Tech Craic Podcast by Sync NI. We are joined today by Paul Hill, who of course is the Managing Director of DailyPay Northern Ireland. Thank you so much for joining us today, Paul.
Thanks so much for letting me talk for your podcast.
That's great, thank you so much. And so to kick things off, we'd love to know sort of all about what compelled you to join DailyPay back in 2021.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So the story begins long before that, but I won't get into too much on that. It actually starts with my time at Bizarre Voice, which was not my previous job, but 2 jobs ago. And I met the current CTO of DailyPay at Bizarre Voice, and as most people who know me know, I set up the office for Bizarre Voice here in Belfast. And when in 2020, my friend David Dyer, who's the CTO of DailyPay, reached out to me in the fall of 2020 and asked if I would be interested in helping them establish a extension of the DailyPay company in Northern Ireland, or in the UK, but primarily Northern Ireland. So, and not just that, but wanted to get into like what's the company about? What's its sort of values, its culture, its plans, its business model, and its mission. And the missions, in my mind, is very compelling. The fact that we're, I'll get into more details, but the fact is we're a capitalist company, right? We're trying to make money, obviously, but we make money in a way that allows us to also give people help in their financial life, and that to me is like it's a two great combinations. It's something you can make money with, but you're helping people at the same time. We're not a non-profit company. We make money. And the growth, when Dave kind of showed me the numbers and the growth and the business plan, it was very exciting. It was very much when you talk about startups having a hockey stick growth, up and to the right. That was what reality was for DailyPay, and so it was super exciting for those reasons. And then finally, it's like it. I know one of the questions later is going to be around like why Belfast? Well, why Belfast? Well, I've done it before, and David basically is like, hey, will you do this for us again? And like I've been, when I left Bizarre Voice in 2019, I wanted to come back. I love Belfast. I love Northern Ireland. So this was presented multiple options for me, or multiple enticing opportunities for me at DailyPay, and I got to work with a lot of great engineers, great people that I'd worked with previously at Bizarre Voice. Brilliant.
That is fantastic. And for those people who might be listening that might not be overly familiar with the concept of DailyPay, you obviously briefly mentioned it there, but would you like to run through it there for those companies that might not be in the know?
Sure, I'll try and do the shorter version. The name is the product reality. That's the sort of reality. DailyPay. So the product in the US is called Earned Wage Access. We're, if not the inventor, at least one of the very, very early creators of Earned Wage Access. It effectively operates under the concept of if you worked yesterday, then why shouldn't you get paid today for the work you did yesterday, or even get paid yesterday for the work you did that day. And all the tech and capabilities we've built over the past, I guess about 10 years now, is around being able to do that, being able to provide somebody early access or pre-payroll access to their money that they've earned. If you quit today, you worked yesterday, you worked part of today, you would get paid for that. So why should you have to wait for payday? Mm-hmm. It's a payday loans or something that's out there, obviously. Probably a lot of people have heard of them. In fact, I'm sure everybody's heard of them, but here's a reasonable answer, a very cost-effective answer to something like a payday loan or an advance on your salary that you know would potentially have to pay multiple tens of percents of interest, or even in some cases hundreds of percents of interest on some sort of payday loan. And instead, we have our product, which allows you to gain access to your wages as soon as you've earned them.
Mm-hmm. It's such a fantastic concept, and one that I'm sure is just risen in popularity, you know, just because of the cost of living and everything. It's a fantastic concept. And obviously DailyPay was founded in 2015 and of course subsequently opened its Belfast office, as you mentioned, in 2021, the same year that obviously yourself joined. It was also the same year it moved headquarters to New York City. You briefly mentioned it already, but is there anything else at all that you'd like to highlight that was so special about Belfast that really stood out to DailyPay as a company?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it was just a great place to live, maybe that would be worthwhile coming back. But to me, you know, I've done many due diligence of locations, and including multiple cities in Republic of Ireland, multiple places in Europe and in India, and in my mind, there's a amazing balance between the quality of the talent and the availability of talent in Northern Ireland and the cost of that talent. And you know, it'd be lying to say that there isn't a cost effectiveness to putting an engineer in Belfast versus in the US. I mean, it ranges from anywhere from 20% less to 60, 70% less to have an engineer in Northern Ireland versus the United States. And so it's, you know, if the talent's not there, you can't do anything really. No matter how much you pay somebody or how much money you save, if you don't have high quality talent, it doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
So first and foremost is the availability of the talent, the quality of, sorry, I should say first and foremost the quality of the talent, and then the availability of the talent, and then cost becomes a factor after those things. And that's what originally appealed to me about picking Northern Ireland as a country to be located, and Belfast as a city to be located.
Perfect. That is amazing. And it is, as you mentioned, it's such an exciting time for DailyPay in Belfast, as it is actively recruiting for a number of diverse roles, with a total of 293 jobs to be expected to be filled by the middle of this year, and a high number, of course, already filled. Can you tell us a bit more about the current recruitment drive and plans for DailyPay in 2025?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll get to 293, but that's more of a reflection of how fast you can hire and onboard, not any reflection really in Northern Ireland or Belfast per se. But you can only, even if you add 100 more people today, you know, it takes time to onboard and train, and like hiring a bunch of people but not being able to onboard them would not be effective either. So it's this combination of, we've got to be able to recruit effectively, be a good experience for all the talent that comes through our recruiting pipeline. And then once you found the good candidates, bringing them on and making sure they onboard effectively, become impactful. And you know, onboarding, as probably a lot of the leaders out there are fully aware, it's a draw on your existing team. So that you've got to teach someone, even if it's just the basics of, here's DailyPay and here's our culture, our values, and here's how we approach building software. Those are still going to be different than most other companies. That is it's a necessary amount of, a necessary time, and that the engineers that are here that need to train those new engineers, you've got to spend it. Like, there's just no way around. In fact, it's something that our CEO Stacy has emphasized, is like, it's not just getting people on board, you also have to get them on board effectively with effective. So the primary hires this year, I mean, we're looking to hire around 50 more people in Northern Ireland this year. Not to say we might hire more. Last year we hired over 60. So from a recruiting and onboarding experience, 50 to 60 is about what we feel like we can handle effectively for 2025. And that's primarily engineering. There are some other roles. Like we had two new recruiters that came in just this week, and our operations team continues to be very, very impactful across the globe, not just for the United States and not just here. I mean, they've done a great job, high quality job, and the operations team here has enabled us to do things like cut our customer support or operating costs by about 70% since 2021, and a lot of that has to do with it's not the cost in this case. It's a matter of their ability to do the job really effectively, document it, and provide it to other people like business process companies, BPOs, provide them that documentation and let them take over some of the entry level kind of work, the more mundane, tedious type of things that happen over and over, but there's lots of them, and then upskill themselves into to other areas. So that but I should be talking about recruiting and hiring. But that has allowed us to continue to grow our engineering organization here very effectively by decreasing our costs and improving our operational capabilities throughout our entire organization, not just North Carolina.
Yeah.
And so that's it. So we'll continue to grow in other areas, but the primary area of growth is going to be software engineering and product development.
Perfect. No, that's amazing. It is such an exciting time at DailyPay, and you've spoken in the past about how important DEI is at DailyPay, of course, and how important is that focus on ensuring an inclusive, diverse culture going to continue to be as we embark upon 2025 and onwards?
I don't know any other way to say it. It's critical in my opinion, it's critical to the future society.
Yeah.
Not just the company.
Yeah.
Everybody's different, and having those different perspectives, having the disagreements because of the different perspectives, allows most people, most places to come up with new and better ideas. If you're all kind of cut from the same mold, if all the employees are like, hey, you're just alike, you tend to group think things. I think you lose a lot of creativity. If you don't have those differences, like, how do you move forward? How do you grow as people, as an organization? And organizations grow as people grow, right? And when I mean grow as an organization and people, I mean the skills, the experience, the knowledge, and it's like, and all of those enable us to grow as a company financially, our revenue and customers, like that. So to me, it's absolutely critical, just kind of the advancement of society in general, and then as a company, I think that's part of it. It's one of the things that is a bit disappointing in the United States right now, where there's been such an anti diversity and inclusion shift. But even as of this morning, I saw a quote about Costco. It said, "Yeah, we're not changing anything. We're doing the same thing we always have related to diversity and inclusion." And it's like that's what I like to see. That's what I think. As a company, it's an important part of our values.
Yeah, exactly. It really shines through everything that DailyPay does, how important that inclusivity and diversity and equality really is. And as you say, it's been proven in the past to actually provide the best results, having that diverse school of thought together. So no, it's absolutely fantastic. And for you personally, Paul, moving on to sort of the technologies that have defined 2024 for you and for DailyPay as a company, what sort of technologies have defined 2024, and what are your sort of predictions looking ahead to 2025?
I think anyone would be surprised if I didn't answer AI and machine learning. The advancement with the large language models and that, it's super exciting times with regard to the AI movement. Not particularly fond of the word AI, but I think data science and machine learning is more of what we're doing, involving mathematics, statistics, and that. And I think it's an absolute fascinating topic as a software engineer. with my technical background. It's absolutely fascinating. But the ability to augment our uh, effectiveness and our efficiency to help us move faster, build better solutions. AI is I think, a tremendous benefit. I mean, it's just time saver. Right? Yeah, will it replace humans? No, I never. I don't believe it'll ever totally replace humans. Mundane, repetitive tasks that don't require any sort of leaps of uh, uh, like I guess like I feel about something, any sort of leaps of faith or leaps of intuition. That's the word I was looking for. So humans have intuition, and AI, whether it's a robot or a computer program, I don't think it will ever get to a point where that will exist. And that's a part you just can't replace humans with that, something like that. Where it makes us faster, you want to get fast to market or get to market first. It's like that's how these tools, the AI tools, will help us do that. And we encourage the use of it across our engineering teams, across our organization, whether it's writing an email and format. Rephrasing it in a more sort of positive light or more impactful way. I think like super helpful for things like that. And I don't know if I would say 2024 is a year of change in and of itself. Since 2022, I think it was 2022 when the large language models really came out. It's just been constantly accelerating, accelerating the use of it, accelerating the possibilities as, of course, competition is happening, being created. Is like now instead of one with OpenAI, instead of just OpenAI, you got all kinds of different companies with options for AI solutions. So I think it's not just a 2024 thing. I think it's a go forward thing. It'll be 2025, 2026, and so forth. It's like, when will it be tapped out? Well, when will human ideas be tapped out? Probably never. Yeah. Right? There'll always be a new idea that somebody comes up with. So.
Exactly. No, that's so interesting. And looking ahead to sort of the cloud services, what are the benefits of moving everything onto the cloud? Are there consequences to consider? And does this move limit or accelerate innovation?
Well, I'll answer the last one first. Yeah, I absolutely think it'll accelerate innovation. Yeah. In terms of benefits, maybe at what we don't have. It's like when you look at a what's a data center have? Well, they have like people setting up equipment, managing physical hardware. You have docks that bring in the equipment, unload equipment, and you got to mount them up. You got to connect them. And it's like those are all things that from a company perspective, they're not particularly value add, right? Not for a company that's building software, right? That's building software and providing services. That's a cost of doing business. Like, well, if you can shift that cost to either lower cost through like cloud services, reduce the amount of management and overhead, then I think it makes a lot of sense. I've done both, right? I've been back in the earlier 2000s. I had 2 data centers that I was responsible for a company that I worked on, what sort of helped found. I actually became an owner, but I was originally as an employee. And setting all those machines up, connecting them, testing them, validating all the equipment, and that wasn't really adding value. It wasn't until we got to getting the software up and running that the value was getting created. So a big benefit of cloud in my mind is reducing that overhead or eliminating it in a lot of cases. Probably not totally eliminating it. But then the other thing I think has been pretty amazing that's come along in the more recent years is the containerization aspect of things, using Docker and other solutions, where now it's sort of this small package that, hey, I can go put this in the Google Cloud, I can go put this in Azure, I can put this in AWS. It's like wherever you might want to use, or whichever one you might want to use. And then because those things tend to be very, very similar, in some cases exactly the same with just some slight differences because it's running one piece of code and another one's running a different piece of code, you can template a lot of the stuff that was being hand done previously, like monitoring and metrics. So you want to keep an eye on your services and make sure everything's running okay. It's like, well, now instead of engineers having to build that every time they build a new service, it's just part of the template in that container that you have.
Mhm.
Now, again, you've accelerated your engineering team. You're able to deliver more value faster because you're removing some of the overhead. Um, I did back in the early 2000s, I did an assessment because we considered, should we move to the early AWS? But we had spent $500,000 on hardware. And so at the time, it was all brand new hardware. It's like, would it be cost effective? Well, if we hadn't bought the hardware, it would have been cost effective. And that's kind of the trade-offs that we looked at. It's like, it didn't make sense for us then. But what it did do is it gave us the ideas around virtualization, and we used VMware to essentially go from 3 racks at $1,000 a piece per month to 1 rack with everything virtualized, which effectively was an approach to cloud. And then as I got more involved in AWS, and when I went to Bazaar Voice, it just kind of became simple, or at least a simple calculation of, hey, this is how much I got to pay, and it's cheaper than buying the hardware. Even a couple of years worth of hardware expenses, like all of a sudden the cloud services just make a whole lot more business sense from a financial perspective, as well as from a speed to market perspective.
Oh, that's really interesting, because in terms of sort of looking ahead to the rest of 2025, and looking forward, we've mentioned cloud, we've mentioned AI, but are there any other sort of technologies that deserve more airtime and consideration as well?
Yeah, I know you guys sent these questions over to me earlier yesterday, and I thought about this one. It's I mean, it's tough to predict the future. Like I mentioned earlier, AI is just scratching the surface, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Not even close to, fully, market penetration of any sort. There's so much more, I think, that can be done with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's I'm definitely not the all-knowing person about technology and the future of technology or anything like that. I try to keep abreast of technology as much as possible. I consider it part of my responsibility as a professional in software engineering. But there's always something new, so it's hard for me to say, hey, this is the next new thing. If I could, I'd probably invest a lot of money in it and try and make money that way. But I think right now it's just like AI is still I think a fully pretty much untapped market. If we were to say that we were 2% into the market, I would not be shocked, right? And that seems like a reasonable number. Actually, I wouldn't be shocked if it was 0.5%.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because it's just there's so many things out there that we just don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know yet, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So when we talk about fusion energy, who knows what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a very exciting time for the world with technology and what's going to come next.
Exactly. There's just so much untapped potential, as you say. Yeah. And when it comes to sort of cybercrime, though, then when it comes to sort of how advanced sort of, cyber criminals have become almost because of AI, looking at it on the reverse side, would you have any tips for sort of businesses or even just individuals at home who use technology to sort of help prevent themselves from becoming a victim of cybercrime?
Sure. Well, from a business perspective, and software specifically, because that's really my area.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, so Deming had a quote. I quote Deming a lot. I like quality things, right? So Edward Deming had a quote about quality comes not from inspection. Um, I think security is the same way. You can't inspect quality in. You can't inspect security in. It needs to be thought of and included from the beginning. A lot of the manufacturing, just-in-time manufacturing, the reason it was so effective is build quality into the vehicle as you're making it. Don't try and inspect it in at the end and go back and fix things. And so you're only fixing things that you found at the time. And it's the same with software, same with security. If you're not thinking about security from the very, very beginning of what are the possible threats, you're not going to cover them all. Like if we could do that, then we wouldn't have cyber threats, right? We would have already solved that problem. But anything a person can create, another person will eventually figure out how to break, right? And so that, like, from my perspective, from a just technologist perspective in the software world, is security has got to be part of the planning. It's part of the ideation. Personally, I personally, I personal stuff. I run my own. I run my VPN. I keep it. It can be quite aggravating with some of the streaming providers out there, because best security practices, or you should be running a VPN. You should have your firewall on your personal machines. You should have some anti-viral software, and they don't really help us with that, right? It's like, oh no, you're running a VPN, you can't use our service. It's like, well, you're not really helping us, because we're trying to improve our security, and you're sort of like making us not do that. So it's, as you can tell, it's a bit of a pet peeve of mine. And I travel a lot, and so I have on my personal machine and on my laptop or my iPad, and that I run a VPN, and I get blocked a lot of times because of that, and I wish we didn't. But from a perspective of being safe, like trying to be safe. In terms of, so from a personal perspective, that's what I do. I don't want to jinx myself and say what's not happened to me. Let's just say I'm happy with how things have been for myself. I've had family members that have had their identity stolen, and had to go through the hassle of dealing with the police to get that resolved, and even years later having to explain it to mortgage companies as to why it's not them and why they should be able to get a mortgage. So I try to pay attention to it, but I don't dwell on it too much.
Exactly. No, well, that's some really great sort of advice for people looking ahead into their own sort of personal habits online. So that's great. And finally, just a final question. As we look ahead to the future, is it true that we are facing skills shortages within the tech sector? And if so, what can be done to address this issue?
I don't know how popular I'll be with my answer. Do I think we face a shortage of technologists or software engineers and other technical people? Yeah, I do believe that's the case. We do a lot to I think anyway, we do a lot to encourage people to go into tech, or to STEM, the STEM subjects and that. But I mean, I think part of what drives remote employment opportunities is that shortage, is trying to find people with the right skills. You want them local, from a collaborative perspective, for people to collaborate and interact and socialize. It's like local, like there's nothing that beats it. Getting on a whiteboard in a room full of people and drawing out ideas, there's nothing that beats that. And I don't care how many online tools, no one has solved online video conference collaboration yet. I hope someday it is, but they haven't. And what drives us to consider candidates outside of the local area is because we can't find the skills we need in the local area. In the Northern Ireland market, we won't tick off too many people here, but DevOps engineers, they're extremely difficult to find. SREs. If you want to make good money you're entering if you're getting to the point where you're considering, what is my career? What do I want to go do? You're about to graduate from college or high school or whatever term you might use, and you're looking for a career that's going to make you a lot of money. DevOps engineering, SREs, they're hard to find. The good ones are very hard to find, and the really good ones, can almost always name what they want. I want this, and you kind of got to give it to them if you want that skill. And it's something that DevOps engineers are not the best ones I've worked with. Tend not to be the ones that went out and got the university degrees.
Okay.
They're the ones that were tinkering on the cars and taking apart electronics to figure out how they work, and they have an innate ability to solve problems by looking at something and just coming up with an idea and trying them out. And there's some great ones out there with software engineering or degrees in computer science and that. But most of the really good ones I've worked with have not had undergrad degrees. They've gotten into the space through some luck of the draw, and it's like jobs that they happen to have. They ended up being really good at it, that solving those kinds of problems. But it's an awesome skill, pays really well, and they're very, very difficult to find.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. That's really good for people to know then, as you say, if they're at the beginning of their careers, to then keep that in mind moving forwards. Well, that is great, Paul. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've really enjoyed having you on as our guest. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And for anybody interested in sort of joining the DailyPay team and looking at all those exciting career opportunities, they should visit the website to stay up to date.
Yes, definitely. Our job sites, I'm sure you can find them on places like LinkedIn and Indeed and that, but our dailypay.com has all of our careers. There's also a dailypay.co.uk, but it's the same site effectively. It's just it's got all of our careers on it. And we are hiring a lot.
Amazing.
We are hiring a lot. So I think our placement candidates, we had over 300 placement students apply for this coming year's placement program. And we had 9 openings, and that was impressive. I actually thought it was going to be in the hundreds, and like in the 100 to 200, and the fact that it's over 300 is pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic, and I think it speaks volumes to how fantastic DailyPay is as a company as well. So thank you so much, Paul, for joining us today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care. Thanks. That's it for this week's episode of the Tech Craic Podcast. Be sure to follow Sync NI across our socials for more. Thanks for listening. Bye.